Hello everyone, Mr. Oliver here with a different video today. I've seen people make video essays on certain locos, including LBSCR locomotives, Nick Train 123's E2 video, Terrier 55 Stepney's Terrier videos. They all inspire me. I decided to talk about an LBSCR class that doesn't get brought up much. That would be the LBSCR E6. Other LBSCR locos are talked about more. The E4 and E2s are some examples of this, and the latter share some similarities with the E6 that I don't believe anyone's noticed. The E6 class were in service for about 58 years, so let's jump right into today's video. The E6s were built between December 1904 and December 1905. The first 3 were built in 1904, while the last 9 were built in 1905. They were 062s. A total of 12 were built, and the last 2 were intended to be built as 080s, but R.J. Billington tragically passed before this could happen. His successor, D.E. Marsh, decided that these would be built as 2 more E6s. Speaking of 2 E6s, 2 of the class were later rebuilt in 1911 into the E6X class, which had the boiler from the C3 and the smoke box from the C2X 060s. Some of the locos had a name under the LBSCR, and these were all of them. Number 407, Worpleston. Number 408, Binderton. Number 409, Grapham. Number 410, Chilgrove. That's a cool name. Number 411, Blackheath. Number 412, Tandridge. Number 413, Fenchurch. The LBSCR loved to repeat loco names. Fenchurch and BG Head come to mind. And number 414, Piccadilly. 407 and 411 were the 2 that became the E6Xs, and the others remained the same. The E6 class was a lot similar to the E5 class from 1902, except the E5s were for passenger work, while the E6 class received goods work. Now, I mentioned the E6s had some similarities to the E2s, and let me elaborate. Both loco classes had 10 locos planned, and the LBSCR wanted to add more to each fleet. Both the E6X and E2s used a lot of fuel, which was a bit of an issue. Finally, both were some of the last LBSCR locomotives in service, and some of the only few to survive into the 1960s. The E6 class was the last design of Robert Billington, and he did not disappoint. He passed before he got to see 407 and Bertram Breton or any other member of the class. Many assume the E6 is basically just a freight version of the E5, but they do have some differences. The E6s had a greater length, tapered chimneys, smaller driving wheels, and outside brake rods. The last 2 members of the class had heavier coupling rods, and they differed from the rest of the class. The class was mostly allocated to Stewart's Lane Depot and Norwood Junction, although occasionally working on the Deptford Wharf branch, I probably butchered that, or Norwood to Wadden Marsh coal trains. The E6 class had a tractive effort of 21,215 pounds, while the E6X could pull about 1,000 pounds more. The E6 class had a boiler pressure of 160 psi, while the E6X class's boiler pressure was 170 psi. The E6 weighed 61 tons, and the E6X weighed 63 tons. All of the class transferred to the SR after the LBSCR, LSWR, and SCCR, and some other smaller companies merged into the Southern Railway, as planned by the 1923 Grouping Act. The class remained unchanged and received no modification throughout SR and BR days, a trait that, of all the LBSCR engines, was only true for the E5 and E6. From 1923 to about 1931, the class was numbered B407 to B418. In 1923, the B became a 2, renumbering the class to 2407 to 2418. The class worked in the same general area as before. Sorry this section wasn't the biggest, I just wasn't able to find any more info on the E6s during the Southern Railway days. In 1948, the Big Four all merged to form British Railways. The E6s were then absorbed into BR ownership and still remained in service in the southern region. The class was renumbered 32407 to 32418, and the class lived life happily for another 7 years or so. In 1955, the modernization plan was formed, which had an end goal of replacing steam traction with diesel locomotives. It wasn't until September 1957 when the first E6 was withdrawn, and these ended up being some of the final LBSCR locomotives in service. Now, the end of the line. The 1960s. Not many LBSCR locomotives remained in service during this decade. Hell, some didn't even make it into BR service, such as the I-2 class. Most LBSCR locos remained in service until the 50s. By 1960, the only remaining LBSCR classes that had some members still in service were the Terriers, E1, E2, E4, K-class, and C2X. The last E6s were withdrawn in December 1962, the same year the last K-class and C2X locos were withdrawn. Here are the withdrawal dates for the E6s. 32407, November 1957. 32408, December 1962. 32409, January 1958. 32410, June of 1961. 32411, February 1959. 32412, September 1957. 32413, November 1958. 32414, June 1958. 32415, September 1961. 32416, February 1962, and 32417 and 32418 were both withdrawn in December 1962. One E6 and one E6X were withdrawn in 1957. 3 E6s were withdrawn in 1958. The last E6X went in 1959. 1960 had no withdrawals. 2 more E6s were withdrawn in 1961, and the final 4 E6s were out of service awaiting scrapping by the end of 1962. After 1962, the only LBSCR locomotives remaining in service were some E2s, E4s, and Terriers. The Terrier Fenchurch didn't make it even 1 week into 1964, and it was the final LBSCR locomotive in service. The legacy of the E6 still lives on. One LBSCR 062 was preserved, E4 number 473 Birch Grove, and she's currently on static display. I have some footage of an E6 operating, although it doesn't last long. It's about half a second long. That'll be it for today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Comment below your thoughts on this video. Should I make more videos like this? Let me know.